my name is Carrie and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to do a bit of a different video. I try to do every few months a monthly report on my Bookstagram, and this month I thought about making it a video because I kind of wanted to expand on my thoughts on these things, so I figured why not just make it? We are doing a report for the month of May, and starting off with our reading, of course. In May, as I talked about in my previous wrap-up, I was coming off of a pretty big reading slump from April, and I wasn't really sure what my mood would be like for May. However, I am always a mood reader, so there's never really a consistency in my reading. In May, though, I was pleasantly surprised that I felt like I was reaching for a lot of books from literary fiction and poetry, which are definitely my favorite genres, but books that I struggle to read a lot of at once because, again, I'm a mood reader. Sometimes I can't read too much of too similar stories or themes. I was really surprised that those were my two most read genres for the month, but of those books, I think that I was having an overall better mindset towards the month. A lot of them felt like books to read as spring is turning into summer, or books that required more critical thinking that I had been lacking in my reading from months previously, or I didn't have the mental headspace to read in previous months. So yeah, it was definitely a different type of reading month, but I was really thankful for it. I read quite a lot of books, and I think that my favorite book from the month would either be World of Wonders by Amy Nezhukumatathil or The Swimmers by Julie Otsuka. I'm saying World of Wonders because that was just such a beautiful book, and it really reminded me of why it's so important to be aware of the world around you and nature and animals. It was just so incredibly lovely. In terms of The Swimmers, this is a book that I think really emotionally impacted me more so than I thought it would. It's a book that I still think about very fondly, as I now have almost read it a full month ago. So to best summarize my reading in May, I think it was a little bit of coming out of the cold and looking for more reads that remind me of spring and summer. Next up, enjoying. In the month of May, I was enjoying a vacation. We had quite a few public national holidays where I live, and on one of those holidays, I went with a very good friend to Fethiye in the southwestern part of Turkey. This is colloquially known as the Turkish Riviera, and while we were there, we took the ferry over to Rhodes for one day. We were there about 5 days in total between the two cities, and I really loved it there. There were so many plants, and I was constantly taking pictures of them. I'll insert a few as I discuss more. I think that I took so many pictures of plants because where I currently live, deforestation is rampant because they are constantly building new apartment complexes, high rises, things like this. Unfortunately, this means that we don't have a wide diversity of plants here, and it's very infrequent to see wider plant varieties or even really big green spaces besides a couple of parks that are much farther in the city. I really loved having so many opportunities to see such a wide variety of plants. I was constantly stopping and taking photos. It was just really beautiful. And while we were in both Fethiye and Rhodes, we were by the sea. We got to visit historical ruins because both cities have a very long ancient history, and that was also really amazing. We went on some really nice hikes in Fethiye. It's along the Lycian Way, and we found some really beautiful scenic views on that trip. While in Rhodes, we were mainly in the city center, which is a very ancient city center, but it was still right along the sea. It was very beautiful while we were there. I think in both cities also, we had such amazing food. In Fethiye, there's this one Italian restaurant that's pretty famous in the region, and we got lucky enough to sit right up at the bar, and so we could see their entire process of cooking. And we had this one salad that was just so good. I've been trying to recreate it since because it was absolutely amazing. And yeah, even in Rhodes, we had breakfast at this one place where I had like a spanakopita pie made from not really like a tortilla dough, but kind of. And it was so amazing. I really loved that. I think in both we just had such great luck with food, even with the weather. Our first day in Fethiye, it was very rainy, but the rest of our trip, it didn't rain except for maybe 30 minutes or an hour here or there at times when we were already inside places. So we got really lucky during that trip, and it was definitely one of the most enjoyable parts of my month of May. Now let's talk about playing. I was on quite a big podcast binge in May. I started a podcast called Well I Laughed. I think the title is very fitting. It's basically these two friends who just research random topics and they present the topics to each other. So one is presenting, the other is giving commentary. As you listen to more episodes, they give a lot of life updates in the beginning. And these are hours and hours of long episodes. I think the longest one is about 4 hours, and it truly was fascinating to listen to. I sometimes can't listen to their episodes in just one go because they're, again, multiple hours. However, I still really enjoy it. And it's often very interesting subjects that I do have an interest in because they research history, true crime, random events that happen in the present day, or just things that they find really interesting. And it's been a really great discovery. I also have been continuing listening to If Books Could Kill podcast. I've been listening to this for a few months. I'm at the point where I'm finally caught up on all their episodes, unfortunately. This is a podcast where there are two people who, I can't remember what their actual occupations are, but they have like a job outside of this podcast. I think one was a lawyer and one was a journalist. I could be wrong though. Regardless, they're hilarious, and their whole podcast concept is reading very popular nonfiction books and debunking them. I really love this. I think it's really entertaining because a lot of very popular nonfiction books that I have heard many people discuss are talked about on this podcast, and many of the things that they cite as why they chose the book, why they are deconstructing it, and explaining the problematic aspects of these books is so fascinating to me because I'm always very skeptical of nonfiction. There was a book a few years ago that I read called Invisible Women. I cannot remember the author, but I'll insert a picture here. Ever since that book, I have really struggled with nonfiction because that book is a perfect reminder of the fact that nonfiction is not peer-reviewed. And this is an unfortunate issue within nonfiction because many nonfiction books are published saying that they are citing research, that they are citing peer reviews or actual scientific research and findings, and that's false. Invisible Women is a one such instance of this where there are multiple flawed sightings of statistics in that book. I have a really big issue with it because there's also a whole section of that book that goes into both like language theory about gendered languages that completely misrepresents gendered languages, and also my other niche area of expertise. There's a whole section on sexual assault and violence related to refugees, and I think the author's argument is absolutely atrocious. And there's also a very transphobic belief that's expressed throughout that book that I have problems with. It's just an awful book, and I wish people would stop recommending that. I still see that book talked about so frequently, and there are so many people that talk about the problems and the fraudulent reporting that is in that book. Please do not ever read it. I want this podcast to cover it because I hate that book so much. And If Books Could Kill is kind of this. It's just them talking about the problems with the book and them doing the actual research that the book failed to do or that the book reported doing and that was incorrect. I believe that this is an essential podcast in this age of misinformation because more people need critical thinking skills, please. On to more media consumption. I was watching What We Do in the Shadows. I started this a few months ago. I only have 2 episodes left before I'm completely done. For anyone unfamiliar, this is a mockumentary of a group of vampires that live together and their human familiar or like human servant that lives with them and like helps them in their vampire duties. It is hilarious. The cast is amazing. I am really sad that I only have a couple episodes left because it's just been such a comfort show for me for the past few months. However, I haven't only been watching TV. I surprisingly watched quite a few movies in May. I've been trying to watch more movies this year, but I've been doing a very poor job at it. However, in the month of May, I watched, I think, 3 movies. There were some that were like rewatches, things like that, but there were 3 movies that I hadn't watched before. The first one is a random one called Mississippi Masala. This is a 90s romantic drama that's about this woman. Her family is South Asian and they were forcibly removed from Uganda under threat of violence because I think it was in the 1970s or 80s, Uganda forced all South Asians to leave the country even though they had been there for generations. This resulted in our main character and her family coming to the United States to live. And they're living a very destitute life where they can't really make any money. They're very poor and working like service jobs for the motel that they're living in. The daughter ends up getting into a car accident with a young man who's played by Denzel Washington, and they end up like kind of starting something. The dialogue in the movie is so awful. The chemistry in the movie is a little bit awful too. Like the way their relationship starts is terrible. However, very entertaining movie still, and I think it has an interesting messaging considering the historical events that it's based on. I ended up really enjoying it. I also watched The Wild Robot. I did cry. It was a beautiful movie. I don't even know how to describe it other than that it is a robot going on a task, and that task will make you cry. So yeah, I loved that. And finally, I watched Twisters. I was sure that I was not going to like this movie. I ended up really loving this. I thought the cast was amazing. I first rented it because it's not available on streaming here, and then I ended up just buying it because I loved it that much. However, the second time I watched it, I did have to speed run through the beginning because I was sobbing the first time that I watched this movie. I did not expect the beginning. I had never watched the original movie. I knew it was about tornadoes. I had no idea the trauma that was the beginning of this movie. So once I was aware of that, it was definitely a better second watch in terms of how I was prepared. On to Obsessing. In May, I think the only thing I was really obsessing about was trying new recipes. I was trying to make something new at least every week of the month. And my real standouts were that I made this herby lemon chicken orzo for friends. I was hosting a dinner and it turned out so beautiful. I am still not over how amazing this looked. And it tasted even better. It was so flavorful and just subtle flavors too, not anything overwhelming, but I think the way that the orzo came out really complemented the chicken. It was a great dinner party vibe. Then I became obsessed with these cinnamon apple oatmeal bowls. These took like 10 minutes to prepare in the mornings and they were simple but amazing. I hosted friends for a brunch where I made this menemen quiche. Menemen is an egg dish in Turkey, and I actually made this without the crust because of allergens for one of my friends, but still I made it in the quiche pan, so I think it counts. But it's eggs cooked with peppers and cheese. Some people add tomatoes, some people add onions, just depends. I made it with some tomatoes and peppers and feta and this cheese that they have here called, I think it's kashkaval. It was really yummy and a big hit. I ended up not having any leftovers of that. And the final win of the month was making a mud hen cake. This is like a cookie dough base, and then you put chocolate chips and marshmallows in the middle, and the top is a brown sugar meringue. I had never made this before. I just saw a random TikTok about it and thought, why not? It looks fun. And it was delicious. The meringue literally melted in my mouth. And I brought this for my coworkers to kick off the start of our summer school, and it was much beloved. I had many people ask me for the recipe, how to make this, what was it? It was a big hit. On to recommending. The biggest recommendation I think I have is trying to find more theater plays. In May, I went to 3 theater productions. One had former students of mine. They're in a theater club and they put on a production of an Irish play. I think it's called the Cripple of Inishmaan, something like that. It was a very long play. It was like 4 hours unexpectedly. However, it was still really good, really fun. I have a photo of the stage that I put up here. I also went to a beautiful production of the Iliad. They had this one scene where they had these paper ships that they cascaded down onto the stage, and it was so breathtaking. I literally started crying. It was an amazingly beautiful production. It's in collaboration with like a theater company and a university. It was so surprising to me how their stage setup, their lighting, everything, it wasn't just the actors themselves, it was the entire production that was beautiful. And the last play that I went to was a German postmodernist play called Hamlet the Machine. It was performed in English and it was a student production that was wildly entertaining. It's a very short production. The actual play is literally only 9 pages, but the way that they played with this and also incorporated more current events from the country into their play was really creative. And I recognized some of the actors from a production I went to last year. So it was really lovely to see their growth and really claiming this space because there were only 4 cast members in the entire production. So it was a lot of weight, I'm sure, on their shoulders, but they did a marvelous job with it. And I went with a group of friends to that one and we could not stop talking about it. There were so many jokes from the play that we still to this day quote. It was just a really great night. And last but not least, treating. For this, I'd say that in May, I was treating myself to a lot of time with my friends. Some of my very close friends here are ending their contracts and moving on to other places, so I really emphasized spending more time with them. This included going to our favorite cafes or food places, but also trying new places as well. And during this time, I also really made an effort to meet up with my book club friends outside of book club and go to some events with them. One of our friends from book club had a choir event where they were performing, and it was a choir and also like a dance performance that was really lovely. I think I've been treating myself to quality time with the people that I care about, and that has definitely been a treat for the month. So that is my May monthly report, and I would love to hear your responses to the prompts that I chose for a report, and also to just hear how your month has been. I hope it was lovely, and I'll see you next time. Bye!